So what's up, world? This is Andrew Krause from Music Theory Logic. Today we got a pretty special guest on to give us a little bit of a mentorship. He's a mentor to me. His name is Jack Lazzarone, better known to the world as producer JackEL. JackEL began his musical life early. He's from Edmonton, Canada. He's been DJing all over the world. He's opened for artists like Afrojack, many others, Tiesto. He's garnered over 10 million Spotify streams. I think that number is quite higher. So yeah, without further ado, let's give a round of applause to Mr. JackEL. So what's up, Jack?
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, dude, it's an honor to chat with you here.
Yeah, man, thanks for that super awesome intro,
Yeah, bro, I wish it should be better. He deserves the music comes before the reputation. And if people go over to your Spotify, they're gonna notice that you produce bangers in many genres. Lots of artists can't say that. Most people just have like one sound, and you make everything from future bass, dubstep, future house, straight up house music. We took over the radio at FM 94.9 here in San Diego when we put out our track on Magic Music, which is called All Alone. I'll definitely link to that below. So yeah, that did huge things to my my career, and I really owe a lot to you for that. So like, let's take it back a little bit. Like, what made you get into music? Like, what's the first memory you have where you're like, I'm gonna do that?
Right. So basically, as I grew up, I feel like there was, powers and sources that I couldn't even control. Like my father, he loves music. He's a guitar player. He's the type of guy that just will whip out a guitar in the middle of a business meeting and just sing a new song with his new guitar. He's not shy at all. So I feel like that kind of owned on to me, his guitar playing abilities. Growing up, there was a lot of instruments in the house and stuff, guitars. So at an early age, around like 7, 8, I decided to finally pick one up. I really fell in love with the guitar right away. I was like, this is so fun to like learn how to play these songs, pop songs. I can show people, hey, look at me, I can play this thing and it makes sounds. And then shortly after the guitar, I drew a huge interest to the drums. Like I just saw a drum set. I was like, look at this thing. It's like a freaking, like a car. It's like, I just want to hop on it. And I did. I remember I hopped on it. And it's just like, it's fun. It's fun to play. I just drew a personal attraction to these things. And then when I was like 12 years old, 11 years old, pretty young, I joined this like choir for church. My friend, some friends I knew were in it, and my family members were like, you should just join. And it was a good way for me to sing in front of a crowd, play guitar while I sing on a mic. And it gave me a lot of confidence too that I didn't have. And that kind of was the beginning of my like performing. At that whole time, like I was just meeting up with musician friends like through grade 6, 7, 8. I'm like, guys, you play? Let's come over, like let's jam, let's jam. So I had this little like jam room in my basement, guitar, bass, drums, DJ equipment. That was at the age of like 13, that's when I finally figured out what the hell Fruity Loops was. I saw like some people playing with it. I'm like, what is that? They're like, makes beats. I'm like, this looks awesome. So I got it shortly after. And then I figured out about Ableton when I was still like 13, 14. And that's when I also bought myself a turntable because I wasn't too sure the difference of DJing and production. Like I thought they were the same thing. So when I bought the turntable, I was like really disappointed in the moment, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but being a producer, it's a little bit different. And it's fun.
Yeah, well, that's an awesome story. It's cool. We both
I was the youth.
We both have guitar as our history. So yeah, I was forced to play piano lessons early on. My dad wasn't a guitarist, but he played classical piano, and I took pretty like old school piano lessons where it's all sight reading, it's all super rigid. And for me, I really kind of like hated the piano in that era, and I saw like most of the music I was listening to was like punk rock and maybe Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I heard a lot of guitars, and for whatever reason, I thought you could like play fun music on a guitar, cool music that people wanted to listen to. And like, you couldn't play that on the actual piano, which was really like the problem with my teacher. And ultimately changed the way like I approach music. But yeah, it was a guitar, and for me, it took a lot longer to discover. It wasn't Fruity Loops for me, but Logic Pro and Ableton. I stayed in the analog world playing rock and roll with bands, and it wasn't until like I didn't have other musicians to make music with me that I was like, you know, what am I gonna do? And I'm resort to writing all the parts on a computer. Yeah, for sure, man. Well, it's really cool that you've been around dance music for so long. Like, what do you think has changed a lot about the
Well,
scene
a
as
lot's
things
changed.
happen?
You know, when I fell in love with dance music, I was 13 years old, and at that point, it was a time where it wasn't the pop, the music, it was the underground kind of. Basically, it was just like the upcoming of like Bass Nectar was there and Dead Mouse and a lot of trance artists, and basically it was just like I remember going to a Dead Mouse meet and greet. Um, it was so like 2012, you know, like 10 years ago. And it was like, that's when I didn't even know about a lot of mainstream artists. I was like, oh, Dead Mouse, okay. Like now I'm going to learn about his label and his other stuff. And then basically it just became skyrocketing into the mainstream, especially now with like Marshmello, how he has like his own costume at the common Halloween store. Like you see his icon everywhere, you know? So like that took EDM into like more of a mainstream realm. And yeah, I think the music industry and in general has changed a lot over the last 1 year, let alone like the last 10 years.
Yeah, for sure. It seems like the music industry changes pretty much constantly. So much like social media. I know you run a label, so we'll definitely talk a little bit about that. But it seems like really like entrepreneur space. And I think like that's something that if anybody looks at your social media, they'll notice that you're not just making music, you're producing other artists, and you're not just working in the music space, but you actually do some food videos, right?
Yeah,
With your
we
boy
just did one
Bobby.
today, man. Yeah, well, we're actually editing it right as we speak. This new
Awesome.
one, and that's just basically just for content for ourselves, a passion project. We love food. Who doesn't? But we just so happen to have had and just continue to build specific relationships with these local businesses that we like to collaborate at the end of the day creatively.
Perfect. And how do you like who organizes this for you? Do you have a manager or you manage yourself?
Manage myself. I have managed myself for a very long time. Have had different homies and people be the quote unquote manager at times. But at the end of the day, I've always found it best to pursue my own creative direction and my own like just natural direction of life. And if it's pursuing music, if it's pursuing these videos, promoting other homies' music, whatever it may be, I just wanted to be filled with that passion. Because
Yeah.
I have like straight fucking ADD when it comes to projects. I just like to next, next, next.
Yeah, well, you do a really, really good job at putting out, like not letting all that hustle compromise the quality of music you put out. That's something that really like blows me away with like your level of the amount of stuff you can do. Um, so with regards to like the whole idea of management, I think a lot of musicians think that, they just need like that one hit so that the right person hears them and then they won't have to do that kind of stuff like book their shows or, talk to labels or stuff like that. And I feel like ultimately that could be true, but then you have less control over your destiny. So I would
Yeah.
say you seem to be modeling it pretty well. Like you're pretty far along at this point. What's something like you're most proud of? Is it
Right.
something that's like your most charted song, or is it like maybe something somebody be surprised about?
Right. That's a good question, man. I mean, basically, at the end of the day, I'm really proud to be like in this specific present moment of like, happiness with the quality of all the tunes that are coming out, the success of the streams, the success of the growth on the social medias, the organic growth. And basically, what really gets me super excited is the know and the ability to create more because I just feel like there's so much possibilities out there, like it's just like working with more people is fun, and producing different stuff is fun. And it's just, yeah, work on a record, finish it. And I think finishing it is an important point to keep track of. But I know that independent artists is there, it's difficult to do it like that. It's better to have a team. And I think that every good artist eventually would have a team. But it's, yeah, there's different ways to do it, for sure.
Right. But the more you do on yourself, the better you'd be at like managing a team or knowing who's pulling their fair share of weight and stuff like that.
In 2020, it's really important for an artist, if anyone is doing this, like to really ensure that they are in charge of all the parameters around them. All the analytics are usually accessible these days, the Spotify analytics, like Pandora analytics, and these analytics are crucial just for like these are, I think, artists to be obsessed about. Like really look at them. Okay, this is the fan base. Like these are the influencer information. So like what's really growing, I think, in America and North America is like the ability for an influencer to build his own fan base and then sell that fan base to anyone, like whether it's products to that fan base or selling like, you know, advertising, sponsorships. It's just that ability, that independence. It's important for an artist that makes EDM, or yeah, I think we should all be looking at that.
For sure. I heard a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. So like to me, the thing you said that you're most proud of is both like the accomplishments you're getting, but while the balanced frame of mind. So feeling happy and optimistic, but still achieving, right? Yeah. And then that coupled with the analytic thing you talked about, one thing I think a lot of people, myself included, as they're coming up, you know, all the analytics, like, you know, when you have no fan base, not very many people are going to listen to your tracks, right? And if you're so bogged down on the analytics, you can get kind of down on yourself. So how do you balance, like maybe you have a release and a label doesn't perform the way you're expecting? So obviously that's a little bit of a negative, but it sounds like you're really good at staying focused on the positive.
That's, well, you know, on the surface, but of course, as an artist, we all deal with like the negatives too. I mean, there's a lot of, I just think being realistic is like really the most important thing. Be really realistic, because like if you look at the numbers and then you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm not selling anything or I'm not getting any fans. Like, of course you're going to say that. Of course you're not the Billboard artist yet. Like you're not the Grammy winner, but like you can still decipher through, like if you get 100 subscribers in 1 year, you can still use that as, a stepping stone where you're like, okay, I tried as hard as I could. I actively noticed that I was getting this many subscribers a week or whatever. I'm paying attention, and therefore I'm only getting this many. And now I can grow from that by, you know, using different tactics or, improving.
So
but
it sounds like
paying attention to the little numbers is just as important as like the hundreds of thousands and stuff.
Right. So it's like perspective, knowing what is like an accomplishment for where you're at. Right. And 100%. Remembering like not to compare yourself against somebody who's been in the scene for 10 years or maybe, has a lot of help behind the scenes.
Yeah. Or monetary funds and stuff.
One of the things that's like been a long time thing that I've thought about in dance music was just like going back to when you got the turntable and you thought that was somehow had to do with production. Right. And obviously like a modern touring DJ is expected to put out great releases, right? But they're also expected to be able to play a room, right? And would you agree like those are two completely different skill sets?
Yeah, I think that's important to know. A lot of people wouldn't really decipher it to like, oh, I want to go see this DJ and he's a producer, but I think people they're satisfied with the press play guy who just has a big light show. Like that's an experience.
For sure. And it's just an interesting thing, because like if you go back to like the guitar playing,
right,
you know, the whole ability to press play creates this whole world where you have artists that maybe aren't producing and buying tracks or, you know, whatever. Would you say that like ultimately the fans, like I think Virtual Riot is like one of my heroes right now, because I think he represents this like new age producer where like the 2010, 2012, 2014 even era, top level electro or dubstep or whatever anyone in dance music really wasn't opening their studio up. You know, and one thing Virtual Riot does, and a lot of the Disciple Records artists, which is super impressive, but they'll live stream production sessions and all of that. So like, I think that whole like press play light show thing is probably changing. Not to mention, we should mention we're doing this October 20th of 2020. Where I live in San Diego, California, we're still not doing shows. Are there shows in Vegas right now?
Right. In Vegas, the shows are very minimal. Very, very, very minimal. It's not very serious at this point. Yeah. It's still pretty much next to nothing.
Crazy. So it's a good opportunity to really be hustling the, you know, social media side of things and writing tracks.
Yeah. And there's ways to monetize that too and build that up and just keep the interactions coming in from that, if that's an avenue artists want to take. You know, I personally, as JackEL, haven't really been pursuing the live stream thing too much because of the fact that I just am waiting, like, for no really specific reason. I'm just kind of, I don't want to just go, I just kind of want to have a planned methodology to the madness. Like, not just, all right, guys, we're live. It's just, personally, I'm like, all right, maybe have a couple of homies involved. And I know even me and you were talking about doing more of a real thing where we have the guitar, bass, drums. That gets me more inspired personally.
Right, for sure. And I think like you don't have to necessarily live stream to be showcasing. You know, I follow you. You're constantly showing people the tracks you're working on and and all of that. So that's awesome. What's your current like favorite plugins right now? Is there anything that's like a secret weapon?
Oh, you know, stuff that's probably pretty mainstream. I mean, I just kind of, since I'm using the Ableton 10, shout out to Ableton, got the Tatty. I like to use Ozone 9 on the master chain because it's just a really good maximizer. I think it gets a solid master out of the job.
Nice.
And then there's a lot of stock plugins with Ableton, but when it comes to getting a record going or getting a record started, I'm usually using like, you know, solid drum samples to get her going by like, I use this one website right now, 789ten.com for samples. I think it's nice. Pretty solid.
Dope. So solid shout out.
Yeah, I'll get that going with those samples, and then I really try to like just start some juices flowing with the bass guitar, the real guitar. Like sometimes if I'm like really starting it from bare bones, I'll just rather take it with the real instrument route than the synthetic. Well, it depends what time, but I think if you start with the guitar, you start with the bass, at least that's a solid option. But either way, Silent, Serum, Massive, Volume Shaper is
for sure. I see you travel. You're in some pretty rad studios, it looks like, in Vegas. Do you ever use Outboard Gear? Like if you're tracking a vocal in a studio, or are you running like through an LA2A or any of that stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when it comes to like the serious gear at these studios, you know, like there's times where I will take full advantage of the in-house engineer that comes with the studio session or that's there. I'll just pick their brain the whole time and just like get them to help me and all that. But then there's other times in these big studios where, you know, like the studio owner has to run, he has to go somewhere, like he's busy in another session and there's no in-house engineer. So he's like, you know what to do, right? And you're like, all right, kind of. So like you just plug a fucking aux cord into your computer, like, all right, let's go.
Nice. So just using, that's the running joke in recording studios is that, you know, what's a console? Like, how do you describe a console to kids? It's that thing DJs put their laptops on.
Right.
You know, like, so it's definitely like things are changing. You can do so much in the box. For me, one of the things that really was a game changer was going to an Apollo. So I'm running like UAD, the Universal Audio plugins, which help a lot with like taking the stress off of my computer. And then also things like if I'm working with a rapper and they want auto-tune in the headphones, then you can do auto-tune in the headphones. And if you're doing something like that in the box, a lot of times you'll see some latency.
Yeah, so shout out to auto-tune. I use that for like every session, auto-tune by Antares.
Yeah, auto-tune. Are you a Melodyne person too? Or? No?
Fuck Melodyne.
It's definitely pretty tedious doing Melodyne edits, right?
I mean, like, I'll do Melodyne if the price is right, or something like that. It's just, I mean, all right, specific vocalists definitely benefit from Melodyne, but like the average vocalist should be able to hit the right notes with autotune. But I know Melodyne is crucial. Like, I love Melodyne, but
Right. Well, Melodyne gives you that custom tunability thing.
I think you might be able to do that on autotune though now, maybe.
Well, a lot of people are using like Waves Tune as a
Bobby Decay uses that, my homie.
Nice. Yeah, shout out to Fire, right? Bobby Decay.
No,
Speaking of,
no, he doesn't like it. No,
he hates that.
That's it. Yeah, it's
I mean, that's how I first heard about him. And honestly, that band we're not talking about the Fire Festival.
Right.
Fire the band, the craziest like electro rock, guitar meets.
They're pioneers, bro.
Super crazy shit.
100%.
So yeah, man, one thing I'm amazed every time I talk to you, like not only are you like busy all the time, but you've been able to like get in this mind space where it seems like, you're super bulletproof. And I feel like one of the things about the music industry is that it kind of does that to people, right? You either like
the cutthroat industry.
You either fold or you get stronger. Right?
It's a cutthroat industry. I've read and heard it's the most cutthroat industry. It's one of those ones where you have to take the blows and you have to be assertive at times, but
for sure. So what's something that like is something like bad that happened in your journey, and like something that looking back you're glad you didn't like just give up? Maybe you felt like you were gonna give up, or
no, that happens like every day. I mean, like basically when I was a little younger, like we were talking about earlier with managers and stuff, I really thought that was what I needed to take everything to the next level. I was like honed in on that. I was like, all right, I need a manager for sure. Every day, biking to the park, meditating in my books, need a manager. And then one day I straight up sent a DM to a girl on Twitter with a lot of followers that was like a porn star. I'm like, blah, 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 like we should work, you do music. She's like, yeah, but you have to talk to my manager. And I was like, oh, well, I'm looking for a manager. And she's like, well, let's all go out for sushi. Happened to be out local in Vegas. I was like, let's go for sushi. I used to love sushi when I wasn't a vegetarian. And basically, yeah, like 5-6 years ago, we basically had a sushi, and I was brainwashed on the idea that I needed a manager. So it really didn't matter what like the manager guy said to me. He had a Versace tablecloth and Versace clothes. So like that to me was like, all right, that's all you need to be successful. So like he signed me to his label. He gave me a house type vibe. It was a really weird scenario, but like at the end of the day, didn't benefit my career at all. In fact, he didn't have any knowledge on how to successfully release a song or even build up an EDM DJ. And at the end of the day, it was like JackEL who pursued through it all, and I had to find the knowledge, and I came out of the fire. But it took a learning lesson of like, you don't really need a team if the team's not going to benefit you. Like anyone can say that your manager, but like you should find somebody that's actually a really legit dope one.
For sure. But it does seem like something you're saying is that like very rarely is anyone else going to fight for you like you'll fight for yourself.
Oh yeah. No.
Right?
Of course. It was a terrible twisted scenario where he wanted me to produce for this band. Like always, I'm like, I don't want to produce for the band kind of vibe. And although this manager figure did get me a couple gigs that were really dope, I probably would have been better off with just following my own path and then saving the time.
Nice.
But there's lots of moments like that, man, where it's just like, that's just one.
For sure. I'm sure we could talk all about that. Got stories for days.
I think that what's really important for me, and like I keep on mentioning, is just the output of really new records, and to me is really important because like I always just I'm like, I just want to be a super producer. To do that, I just want to produce super tunes and keep them coming. And that's
nice. Yeah. So let's talk about that. Like, what do you think? So you finish a track and then you're going to shop it to labels potentially? Is that
finish a track, shop it to labels first, 100%.
Okay. So first of all, I guess we should say like why you have a label. So why would you benefit from another label signing your track?
Well, in this era of time, I think it's beneficial to take advantage of specific networks that are already established. My record label is a really great label where we give 100% of the royalties to the artists. We've always done that from the very beginning. Where, like, let's say you release a song on my label, Faded. Um, if you made $100 from that song on Spotify, you get all that money. The label gets 0%. And I just have done that because when I started Faded, it was for my artist homie friends that were like, I love your music, bro. I'd love to release it. Let's do it. I don't need the money. I just want to release it. So that's kind of what Fade has always been about, that more collective, good vibe style. But when it comes to like other tunes, I think it's important to benefit from other networks like the Magic Music or whatever labels.
Right. So when you say network, you're saying that like they're people just like artists, these labels have their own fan base, their own followers, subscribers. Yeah. So when you sign a track, like for us, we signed All Alone, I Need Another to Magic Music. Yeah. And I forget what the figures are, but they have a lot more YouTube subscribers than I do.
Yeah.
And
right. Or me.
We'll link to that below, but I think that video is like 60,000 plays. And one thing that blows my mind about that release is like I hadn't checked the YouTube video or Spotify in a while. And somewhere in the last few months, I went and looked at it, and it's really interesting because we put that track out before COVID, right? And it's like All Alone, I Need Another, right. My friends haven't seen me all summer. And there are people going to that track and saying like, oh, this actually has great meaning for 2020, like currently. So I thought that was super cool. So labels have their own followings. And do you find that like all like the following is equal to the label? Do you think like every label that has 100,000 subscribers is worth the same? Or do you find that certain labels like push your stuff better than others?
Yeah, I think I did this little experiment with JackEL where I released like 16, 18, 20 tracks on 20 different labels. I wanted to see which ones would have the best return with their organic marketing and their just whatever they provide. Like some labels provide promo videos for you to post, and some of them don't do anything. Some of them give you an artwork, some of them don't give you an artwork. It's like, depends. But it was fun for me to experiment with all of them. I think that it's important to experiment, but also to avoid releasing on a label that doesn't really give you the return. I think it's hard to tell though nowadays if a label has 2 million plus subscribers. You obviously assume right off the gate, like, hell yeah, that's a no-brainer. Why? Of course, I want to take advantage of those. But then it's a risk because you don't really know what's going to come.
Right. So to translate people, what he's saying is that you get an offer from a label. They might have 2.1 million subscribers on YouTube, right? But there's no guarantee that they're going to put that out with a lot of momentum. So like labels might do things like, put out 5 tracks every day, in which case like they're
oversaturated.
It's oversaturated and they're different styles. Or so and one thing I've come to terms with is there's no real way to fully know without signing a track, right? So like, fool me once, shame on me, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame. A label doesn't do what you think they're going to do. You just need to mark your notes and know that lived and learned, right?
Right. That's kind of my whole mentality with all these singles that I've been cooking up. It's kind of like, I love them all equally, but you just really got to live and learn. And I think it's good to take advantage of these labels networks and to take advantage of their fan bases, release with them. But like, I almost just don't believe in the method of like, if it's a good song, it'll do well. Because it's like, is that even a reality? I
wanted to talk all about this. This is like my number one thing.
Like you're just stood up, you're like,
well, no, I really I think I put that on Twitter a while back, but like, is a song a hit because it's like brilliant song, or is a song a hit because it gets 100 million streams on Spotify?
Right, and that would be subjective 100% because really the term would have to be subjective, right? Like, because I mean, I hear some songs that I've never even heard about, and then I hear them like, this is a hit. Sounds fucking amazing. But then, is it really a hit? Like, who determines?
Right. And so when you're signing a track and you think like this is definitely going to be a hit or this is going to do well, what's your like time frame? Like, do you wait? Like, because I've noticed when you email labels, sometimes it's a waiting game, right?
Right.
So how do you balance like this label offered me to sign it, but they have 100,000 subscribers, and this one that has 10 million I haven't heard from yet.
Right. Well, I personally, as JackEL, have built up this pyramid, dude. I have it of most important to least important, where it's like I have to send to these people first now, because if they accept it, then I'm good. But if they deny it, then I move on. And it's
Okay.
basically that's important for me because it's like if I just send to everybody all at once, it just gets crazy. Like I want to give people the actual literal ability of being like, yo, this is fully exclusive, brand new for you guys. I made this for your label, you know, and then they're like, oh, it's not a good fit at this time. All right, no worries, move on to the next. But you know, I think there's some solid guys out there that have spent a lot of time building up a solid following, and I think like everyone's waking up where it's like you don't just need these like 5 major independent EDM labels anymore. There's like 20, 50, you know, more and more, and they all have the ability to translate streams and royalties and organic traction, which is all important.
Right. And one of the interesting things with that is there's like lots of differences. Like there are labels that are basically SoundCloud channels, right?
Yeah.
There are labels that are basically YouTube channels.
Right. Or
There are
Instagram
labels
maybe.
that that encompass all of them, you know, and are hustling on all the socials. So when you sign a track with a label, is that like job done? They tell you when you're gonna celebrate that it's come out, or do you also on your own promote those tracks?
Right. So basically, it's like you obviously have to just promote them yourself as an artist and promote and post them on all your social medias, like your Facebook page, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever you have. Just post them up. It's a new song. Like be excited about the release and stuff. But you know, when it comes to investing, that's something that I think when you go into this business deal with the record label, you should have clear expectations of like, okay, if I'm gonna shoot a music video, that will cost. If I'm gonna do a marketing campaign, that's gonna cost. These are all plans that you should be able to write to a label in an email or a text or whatever phone call. And like if you're splitting the royalties 50-50, they should be able to split it with you, the cost of the video and the marketing, even though like some labels will definitely say no. It at least doesn't hurt to inquire. And if they say no, be like, why not? Like, what are you guys doing? And basically, I've had a couple labels actually pay me to shoot music videos for singles, and labels pay for like some marketing endeavors and or like remixes on my songs, which will all benefit the label. Like, you know, if you sign to a label.
Right, for sure. So it's like they can't do it if you don't ask, right? So
Right,
communicate with your
exactly.
label.
Communicate, be serious about this, you know, and expect the best.
Yeah,
Expect the millies. Expect the millies.
right. Well, that's pretty awesome stuff. And was there a moment like one track where you think like things changed, or has it been like a slow and steady climb?
That's man. It's. I mean, I keep track of the JackEL discography, so I actually definitely know the moment when things changed, and it was like when I signed this song called Bass Race to. I mean, there's been many definitive factors, but this one time I signed Bass Race to Firepower Records, which was Datsic's old label. So once I signed that, I realized like, whoa, there's this sensation that comes with signing a record to a label. And it's like this feeling and like this thing is so nostalgic. I'm gonna ride this dragon out. And that's when I was like, next label signing, next label signing, next label signing. That's when I signed my first song to Magic Music and just kept this going. Like, all right, I'm just gonna keep on signing singles to labels. And to be honest, I'm still doing that to this moment, but I'm just being strategic. Like I decided to sign 4 songs to Tribal Trap. So maybe that was a little bit much, but we'll see what happens there and we'll just keep it going.
Nice. Have you had releases on Tribal Trap before?
No, these 4 are all up and coming. The first one comes out in November, and then the last one's like February or something.
Cool. Well, good luck with that, man. Hopefully they end up at the top of that triangle.
Right? No, yeah, they're right now they're number 2 or 3.
Nice. Yeah. Well, one thing I've been seeing on your social media stuff is you're not just working on music and videos, right? Or your food videos, but you've been biking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get on the Strava.
I've been addicted.
Nice. How do you feel? Something like for me, when I got into music, you see a lot of images of rock stars and, drug use, cigarettes, drinking, not sleeping much. You kind of feel like the music industry tells you like that's the way, like rock stars, and even like
for sure, and the women,
like,
and the alcohol.
Yeah, but you kind of figure out through like own trials, right, that like exercising, this thing we do, creating music, we're using our brains and our ears, right? And if our body isn't working properly, it's probably not gonna make the best tracks.
Yeah. And I mean, when I went to like a special junior high, it was like an athletic school for hockey. And then high school, I kind of was doing hockey. I used to play like 2-3 games of hockey every day back up in Canada. And then when I moved to America, kind of Vegas, I decided to, like, there was no hockey for a little moment. So I was just like doing so much music. But then, you get into these like mental ruts where you're like, what's the point? Or like whatever you're thinking of, like mental drunk jam. But then like, I've recently found, ever since like September 9th, after my birthday, I got this bike. When I'm going for these bike rides, 30 minutes an hour, it's just an opportunity to switch up the thoughts, generate some new thoughts. And when you get back in the studio, you remember why you're there. It's like this, you don't take it for granted. I don't take it for granted. Personally, I'm like, all right, I'm back. I'm, finally time to get going and stuff. It's like having a job where you're at the job the whole day. You're like, I can't wait to get home. Kind of.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think like that's important for especially up and coming music people to hear, because I actually think there's a lot of studies that prove that, our brain's part of the neurological system of our body, and we use like blood flow, right? And when you do cardio, when you get your heart rate up, your body's becoming more efficient and getting oxygen where you need oxygen and stuff. So I think there's actual like medical reasons for why that is. But yeah, there's this thing that happens to me, like when I don't do things that aren't music, that I reach the point of diminishing returns, where I'm like working on an idea and it's like, oh God damn it, the idea is worse now than it was 2 hours ago. Like, how is that even possible? I'm trying my best. And for me, it hasn't been the bike. Although I should get on biking. I live in a hilly area here in San Diego, but I've been using a jump rope, and I literally like go right outside my studio and I do this like interval training with my heart rate monitor. And that has been something that's really been a game changer. I mean, for me personally, this whole COVID thing, I think everybody on the planet was pretty stressed out, right? There's been like just so much tension in the country, especially with like the election coming up, the rioting, the protests.
It's been a crazy year.
It's the COVID shutdowns. I mean, we are, lucky to still be like working and making music and getting streams and signing tracks and working for artists and stuff. But we definitely like feel for our nightlife industry, right? Because like when we go and play a club, we like to, be able to get a drink, or we like to be able to know we're safe where we are. So just like, shout out to all of our bouncers and bartenders and go-go dancers and everyone else that we like need to put on a rad event, right?
Right. Yeah. Hopefully that all comes back soon.
Yeah, I think it definitely will.
Another thing that I wanted to add to like the whole mental helping thing is that I think definitely having friends is really important. If I didn't have homies to run by my tunes by, or like that's, I think, crucial for me, like being able to drive to one friend's house, show them my songs, be like, what do you think? Like just like a person that doesn't even listen to EDM, or even if they do, like another producer, it's like, what do you think about this? Oh, it's cool. Like even hearing that, it's like, thanks,
Right. Well, that's a great point. One thing I find, like when you're a one man or woman like machine and you're making your tracks, you're mixing your tracks, it's really hard to have like objective perspective, right? Like you pretty soon like start to hear the same kick over and over again, or like it's pretty natural to actually say like a lot of pop music, partly it's popular because you know, the lyrics and chords, it's well produced, but also it's the amount we hear it, right? So the more we hear anything, the more we like it or digest it.
Yeah.
You know, so like when you're writing a track, are you saying like showing a friend really helps you to know like which way is up, or do you feel that?
Yeah, showing a friend really, it actually psychologically, I can tell based off the vibration in the air if like what I need to change. Like if I show a friend and then they're like, just if they don't even say anything at all, I'm like, okay, well, this part's too long. This part is so awkward. Like I can just feel like, okay, this is not the best, or this is great. Like people will say, oh, I love this. People show me their songs. I'm like, this is great, man. Perfect. You know, it's so awesome.
When you're working on one of your own songs, do you ever feel like you need to just walk away from it to be able to know whether you like it or not?
Oh, of course. There's that like one theory. It's like only work for like a couple hours and then, you know, switch how you hear the sound. I like to do like, so if you're listening on the headphones, switch to the speakers or switch to the laptop speakers, or, you know, then go for a car ride and listen to it in the car for an hour. But it's like definitely switch it up. You know, I definitely can't be cooked up in an area for too long unless you're really into it. But even if I am, I'll go outside and like, you know, smoke a J or whatever
Yeah, or
you
go on
do,
a
man. Go
bike
for a
ride or
walk, bro. Go
whatever.
for a bike ride.
He lives in
100%.
Nevada. That's legal for those of you that still live in places that are behind the times. Get with the times.
Sorry, mom and dad.
California, Nevada paving the way, but it's all right. Canada, I think, is ahead of the United States, right?
Yeah,
It's
they're
federally
legal
legal up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this has been quite an honor getting to pick the brain of somebody who's been around the block so much. If you had to guess, like what trends do you see? Like where's this dance music thing gonna lead us?
Well, I think that barriers are constantly being broken down, and that's really beautiful. I think that since music is really being more and more easy and accessible for anyone to create around the whole world, and these Zoom calls are becoming more and more popular, I think that the whole world's just going to be collaborating on a bunch of hits, man, and there's going to be a shit ton of more and more music coming out. So just make sure everybody is really focused on their favorite artists, because there's just so much tunes dropping all the time. More and more artists, more and more collabing. Like, to be honest, I've got like so many, like multiple albums just sitting there, getting like just waiting to come out right now. And I'm sure a lot of other artists do too. So it's just, I think the future is just about more and more output of great songs and stuff that's never even been thought about being created before. I know like Bjork, she invented 3 new instruments or something for her latest album. Like, possibilities are endless these days.
One thing I think that's also happening is that like I thought a lot about this. Like I know I'm a little bit older than you, but you know, before social media or streaming or anything like that, there were less like cultures, you know, like there were types of people, you know, and like certain only so many bands or artists and clothing companies. And it seems like we're headed towards a world where everyone can have like know what they vibe with, the artists they like, the clothing they rock, the places they go, maybe the place they go to eat, all that stuff, you know what I mean? And that could be completely different than someone else. You know, one thing that's crazy to me working for artists in different styles is like I'll be shown someone who's doing really, really well in whatever subgenre they're in, and I've never heard of them. And it's like, it's not because I'm like out of the loop. I'm like 100% always doing music stuff. It's just the number of people to keep track of keeps growing, right?
Right.
And there's no end in sight with that. One thing you talked about too was I think we talked about it on social media, but we're working on a rock, like a more of a live version of our track Warrior Cry, right, with Trice B,
Can't wait for that.
which out on Monster Wolf. People should go check that out.
Yeah.
That has a lot of guitar in it already, but is that something you see happening, like modern bands where maybe it's not like guitar, bass, drums, singer, like older bands, but maybe more of something that like DJing meets live stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's been happening more and more, you know, when Skrillex worked with the Doors and when all these people work with older bands, like it's happening more and more for sure. And I mean, look at like the charts right now, like that one song Dreams is number one or something because of the TikTok with the guy drinking the cranberry juice or whatever. I mean, it's like,
Crazy world.
yeah, it's crazy times. Like the old is still there, and I'm constantly personally looking for really good bangers to remake, to cover, to get inspiration from. And I think that it's just because you release a song today doesn't mean it needs to blow up that day. Although it would be nice to have it an instant hit. It's like it can still come back a year later.
Right. And that's a really interesting thing once you understand that. And maybe you're somebody who was like tripping out a lot because you had a song, you thought it was a hit, you
Yeah.
put it out, nobody listens to it. And so you're tripping out. You're like,
Yeah.
the hell, why isn't anybody paying attention? And then like a year later, just some artist could play that in a set and that's all it needs to be lit on fire.
Oh yeah. That's all
Right.
it could just be placed in a movie and then boom.
So, right. And so it's almost like you're saying it's important to look at the analytics, but it's also important to make music and be in a frame of mind where you're just focused on the track. Right. And that ultimately, you know, the analytics could tell you that the track wasn't great, but that could also change very quickly. Yeah. And one other important thing that I've talked a little bit about, but I mean, shout out to Miley Cyrus when she was on Joe Rogan. You just mentioned TikTok. And she was saying, I don't know if you caught this, but she's like, I probably shouldn't be talking about this, but my record label actually, and record labels do this, they have TikToker influencers that are on their payroll that will post whatever song the label puts out to promote.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So that has the perception of it being real. But one thing I think we all need to remember as we walk through this like virtual world where we've got Instagram filters and we've got, you know, the ability to stand in front of a car that's owned by someone else to say like, you know, shout out to my new ride, and basically like don't believe what you see, focus on your own stuff. Right?
Set realistic expectations, man, because it's way too easy to set like unrealistic expectations. If you're taking this music thing like a business, you have to be serious about it. You have to be, you know, really professional at times. And it's like, you know, any company, when they drop a new product, they're going to definitely invest into the commercials for it, the marketing, the rebranding. And that's what even producers have to consider is a rebranding budget, an advertising marketing budget. And I think we can all be more professional. And honestly, what I've been working with some artists lately, producing for them, and they've worked with Sony, Warner. I mean, I've worked with those type of labels before. Just take the methods of the big labels and do it independently. Do everything they do, but do it ourselves. And all you need is, we just don't have the network or the big budgets, but you know, just invest into the different realms. I totally already knew about the TikTok thing. That's why I think it's appropriate to, as an artist, to have those connections built yourself. So when you release a new song, you can mass message the TikTokers, the Instagrammers, all of them.
Right, for sure. You just said something that I think is like really, it's super profound, but we are the music business, right? It is a business after all, right? And although we're not selling shirts as the main product, although I know you got some pretty dope Faded and JackEL merch yourself, right? But the product is the music or the brand or whatever. And so all the same things that if we were talking about selling water bottles, we would talk about, you know, how many water bottles we needed to make, how we get them to the right people, how people know about the water bottles, you know, where we might get our water. What you would do
is figure out, who would be the distribution, where's the product facility, how to make the water bottles, who's going to sell it, where to buy them, what's the cost. And that's exactly what we're doing with the music. I just think you just can't be lazy as an artist, because it's easy to be lazy, but
right. Well, but I think a lot of people, myself in the past included, like you focus on the music side of the music business and you don't really recognize that like this is a business, you know, as silly as that is.
It's easier to forget, right?
Things like showing up, like acting professional, like you said, you know,
sure,
being on time, you know, doing what people ask of you. One thing I've been blown away with you every time we collaborate is it's like, I'll send you stems to a project and you send me like tracks, like something like 2 days, 3 days. It's crazy the speed that you work at. Is that always the case, or is that because you felt those tracks? Like, do some tracks take you longer?
So basically my workflow as an entrepreneur is I wake up in the morning, I set a to-do list of like priorities, and then there's other like sub priorities that aren't as important, but the priorities are definitely very important. So, you know, if we're collabing, like I will try to realistically be very informative to whoever I work with or whatever. And with time frames, like, okay, send me the stems, bro. Like I'm gonna load them up. I don't want to work with someone and be like, send me the stems. Then like I'm kind of busy, but like I'm not that busy. And then a week later, I load up the stems and I'm like, oh, what the fuck is this for? Like, where are the stems? I lost them. I'd rather just get to it fast and not waste anyone's time. Like, because then that's just maximizing time. Like it's
right, for sure. But that goes back to acting like a pro, right?
you
So you gotta remember that. Well, it's been an honor chatting with you, JackEL. Once again, I can't thank you enough for collaborating with me, for opening up doors to labels. I'm excited to send you the rock edit of Warrior Cry. I'm still waiting on those drum stems, but I've heard the performance. Yeah, congrats on everything you have going on. I'll obviously link to your socials below.
Oh yeah, thank you.
If there's some 12-year-old watching this that doesn't even know where to begin or something to do you have any like last words for someone like that?
Yeah, just, you know, try to hone in on the specifics of what your dreams really are. The more you define them, the more you can really make them come to life. And just, you know, follow your dreams, follow the passions. Don't let people or anything get in the way. You know, you're on this earth for a fucking reason. There's only a little bit amount of time, really. It just goes like that. You wake up, you're like 40, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, I forget who said this. There's the year you're born, the year you die, and then the hyphen in between. It's all about what you do with the hyphen.
Yeah. You know, no one would have thought that video games would be making billions of dollars every year. Look at those guys. They're killing it.
I know. It's so one of my favorite videos. There's this show on Netflix called 7 Days. It's about like the 7 days leading up to an event. And they have the League of Legends Championship is one of the events. And they have one of the top League of Legends players, like his kid's making millions of dollars. And they have his mom on, and she's like, I feel terrible for how much, how much pain I caused telling him not to play video games.
Yeah.
You know, he's making more than me. So yeah, I think that's a lesson. Do what you like. And if you enjoy it, other people might enjoy participating with you.
They totally
doing
will.
it.
They'll feel it. If you keep promoting positive energy to the socials, to the world, even if it's like scary fucking demonic energy, whatever it is, if you're serious about it, passionate, and you're promoting it, people are going to get engaged. They're going to get curious. They're going to get interested. And, you know, I just want to say thank you to everybody that supported me personally, and including you too, man. Like, it's just a good time, you know, and there's more to come. I got the JackEL lighters in the mail right now. I'm going to go pick up. So
awesome. We'll have to check that out on the social to see. And if somebody wanted to send you a track to Faded, how do you suggest doing that?
So we spell Faded a little uniquely. It's FVYDID. And you can hit us up at Instagram at Faded, FVYDID, or faded@gmail.com. Send the demos.
Awesome. Are you always on the lookout for up and comers?
Yeah, every day. You know, I get about 3 to 10 demos every day, literally on multiple platforms. I'm checking them out. I'm considering them. And the only thing that's stopping you from having a release on Faded is really just, it's a quality thing for me. I need to feel the song, and it needs to have the vibe, the Faded vibe. That's all it is. You know, like people will send demos to Faded, then send them to another label, and the other label might accept it. I might deny. I might accept. They might deny. It's all personal opinion.
For sure.
But I'm always on the lookout.
Awesome. Well, I think people would be super excited to hear that.
Yeah. Man.
And yeah, thank you again. We'll link to socials below. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us at Music Theory Logic.